Is this animal?
Yes, sir. This is Francis. Wake up, fella. I've brought our bank president, Mr. Monroe, out to meet you. He's heard stories, thought I might be a little crazy, so I want you to put his mind at rest.
It's your mind that needs rest, not mine, young man. That stupid-looking thing has a thought in its head, let alone talks. Then I'm a jackass, too.
Here we go again.
Market drops 5 points. I'm glad my money's tied up in hay.
Pack your bags!
I'm unavailable.
You can talk to animals.
Yes.
So Balaam got up in the morning, saddled his donkey, and went with the officials of Moab. God's anger was kindled because he was going, and the angel of the Lord took his stand in the road as his adversary. Now he was riding on the donkey, and his 2 servants were with him. The donkey saw the angel of the Lord standing in the road with a drawn sword in his hand. So the donkey turned off the road and went into the field, and Balaam struck the donkey to turn it back onto the road. Then the angel of the Lord stood in a narrow path between the vineyards with a wall on either side. When the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, it scraped against the wall and scraped Balaam's foot against the wall, so he struck it again. Then the angel of the Lord went ahead and stood in a narrow place, where there was no way to turn either to the right or to the left. When the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, it lay down under Balaam. And Balaam's anger was kindled, and he struck the donkey with his staff. Then the Lord opened the mouth of the donkey, and it said to Balaam,
What have I done to you that you have struck me these 3 times?
Balaam said to the donkey,
Because you have made a fool of me. I wish I had a sword in my hand. I would kill you right now.
But the donkey said to Balaam,
Am I not your donkey which you have ridden all your life to this day? Have I been in the habit of treating you this way?
And he said,
No.
Then the Lord opened the eyes of Balaam, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the road with his drawn sword in his hand, and he bowed down, falling on his face.
Okay, folks, you've had your introduction to Funtastic Friday. Now let's try to make some sense out of the fun that we've enjoyed with the previous clips. I got to ask a question. How clearly does God have to speak to us before we understand and heed? That's the question that comes out of this passage about Balaam and the talking donkey in Numbers 22. How plain does God have to make it before we get the point? Balaam was a self-made prophet for the king of Moab. He was a smooth talker. He was able to negotiate himself through most situations successfully. And there was this war between the Israelites and the Moabites. They were in a constant war. They still are in conflict today with their descendants, and they needed some divine intervention. King Balak of Moab felt he needed more than an army. He needed God on his side. And ever think that we just couldn't make it through a situation without some divine help? Well, that's where the king of Moab was. And so he sends his prophet to intervene, but the prophet resists and resists and resists, failing to go. And finally he gives in. And so he saddles up his donkey early that morning, and he sets out on his trip riding his donkey to prophesy against Israel. He came to a sudden change in course when the animal darted sideways into a field. And then the animal, we're told, clearly saw this angel standing in the path before him, and the angel drew the sword in the road and was standing there seeking to avoid his path. Balaam forced the donkey back onto the road, and they came to a narrow pass, and the angel appeared again. But again the donkey saw it and tried to divert the path, tried to avoid it. The donkey brushed the prophet's leg against a wall, and finally it was the angel that appeared in an area that was too small to get around, or too small. And finally Balaam is at the point of giving up. And so he's beating his donkey. He's striking him several times. And then the donkey says, "What have I done to you to cause you to strike me these 3 times? Haven't I served you all of your days?" Finally, then, the angel chastises Balaam for what he's done. And Balaam realizes his sin, and he confesses, and he makes what the Greek call a metanoia, a change, a conversion. And he changes his mind and changes his way. But the point of the story is, how long and how many avenues does God have to come to us before we truly get the point? Now, I don't take this passage in Numbers 22 literally, that the animal talked. Now, you may, and that's just fine with you, but that's where my theology stops. I love my cats. I've got 2 of them. One was just down here, and they talk to me, but they talk to me in their meows. They don't talk to me in English. This donkey obviously talked to Balaam in Balaam's language that he could understand. The metaphor here is that God comes to us through all avenues, trying to correct our path and to make us lead a righteous life, but we ignore it. We just don't get the point. So let me conclude with asking you, how often and in how many times does God have to come to you in your conscience, in your inner self, and speak? And you clearly know what God is saying, but you avoid it. Do you do that? I've been there before, and I will probably be there again. That's what I understand that forgiveness is about. Now, I want you on this Funtastic Friday. This is a special time because Halloween's just around the corner. I want you to listen to Don Francisco talking about Balaam and the talking donkey. It's a great song with a good point. May God bless you. We're going to share these very short messages each Friday. Look forward to Tuesday because it's going to be 10-minute Tuesday. I know they're not 10 minutes, but that's what it's going to be called. And then next Friday, we will have another Funtastic Friday with some more strange scriptures of the Bible that just beg for an additional understanding. God bless you. Run the race. Finish well. You don't have to win, but you gotta finish. May God bless you. Amen.
Balaam was a prophet about the time that Moses was coming through. And every now and again God would speak to him and tell him what to say and do. He had a reputation in all those parts for being on the line to power. And when Moab's king heard Moses was coming, he called him in his needy hour. He said, Balaam, come and curse these Israelites. If you do, I believe I could beat them in a fight. But when Balaam asked the Lord said, Balaam, don't you go. Israel is blessed by me, don't you go mess up my show. But Balaam's head was turned by the money he could earn, so he saddled up his donkey anyway. Balaam and his servants hurried off for the king of Moab's castle. But they hadn't gone very far down the road when the whole trip became a hassle, because the donkey ran off across a field and she nearly broke Balaam's ankle. But when she lay right down and wouldn't get up, Balaam got a little more than rankled. And for the third time Balaam beat her with his cane. But that donkey just refused to move again. It was the thing that happened next, though, that made Balaam's knees get weak. Well, that donkey still would not get up, but she began to speak. She said, Balaam, you're to blame. The way you beat me is a shame, 'cause all I've done is tried to save your life. Then the angel of the Lord appeared with a flaming sword in his hand. Balaam fell down on his face, a very frightened man. The angel said, Balaam, you'd be dead if your donkey hadn't detected that I was waiting there to part your hair when you and my sword connected. And Balaam then repented for his sin, and he promised not to act like that again. And I hope he learned his lesson about God's reward for greed. But you know, it's that talking donkey that's really strange indeed. Now that donkey's just a donkey, but she's still the thing God used. And that's the point I want you all to see. The Lord's the one who makes the choice of the instrument he's using. We don't know the reasons and the plans behind his choosing. So when the Lord starts using you, don't you pay it any mind. He could have used the dog next door if he'd been so inclined.